what we know is that he's of Australian origin. Now, there are reports coming out today that the original target was not going to be New Zealand. And one of the reasons that New Zealand was targeted is because it's a country that's never known this kind of terrorist attack. Has been a very peaceful country. There have been shooting incidents there, but nothing on this scale. And so it would have been for them a slightly easier place to infiltrate and to launch this kind of attack. That's the first thing. Second thing is, it appears that this is a well-planned incident. It wasn't something that's just happened sporadically. There's reason to believe that what has been coming out of the investigation is that this planning has been going on for at least 2 years to prepare for this attack. So it was the country was specifically chosen. Then the attack was put into effect, which calls into question all sorts of things about the way that New Zealand will now have to be able to deal with this kind of incident, like protecting its Muslim community and asking the question, are the police in New Zealand well enough trained and armed to be able to handle this kind of emergency situation? One of the only plus points, if you could call it that, concerning this attack today is that one of the mosques, the Al-Noor mosque, where most people are reported to have been killed, was only about 1.5 kilometres away from the local hospital. So people were being able to be transported there by neighbours, people who lived near the mosque, those who were passing by who saw what was going on and saw the injured people. And that helped before the security forces got there. And there has been some criticism that maybe they were a little bit slow in turning up to get involved in helping these people.
This is a country, Philip, that prides itself on its multicultural success, a country made up of many people from different parts of the world. What have been the reactions within this tiny island nation?
Well, as we saw, the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, has called this one of the darkest days in New Zealand's history. I think that for practically all New Zealanders, there are two emotions. The first one is shock, and the second one is disbelief that this kind of event could actually happen in their country. They've seen this happening in other places all over the world, least of all here in France, where there have been a number of terrorist attacks. We all remember the terrible attack at the Bataclan in 2015, where over 100 people were shot dead. But I think for many people in New Zealand, because it's such a faraway country, such a peaceful country, they thought, well, this is just never going to happen in our country. And this is a very rude awakening that even if you think you're sheltered away from this far-right extremist hatred, it can suddenly surface even in the most unlikely of places, and that most unlikely of places is New Zealand.
And given with what you've just said, how is an attack like the one that we've just seen possible in a place like New Zealand?
Well, as I said before, I think that New Zealand was chosen. It wasn't the first choice, but I think New Zealand was chosen simply for that reason, that it was easier to prepare for an attack like that. In Europe now, it's becoming increasingly difficult. You had the Anders Behring attack in Norway that has beefed up security forces there. You've had the attacks here in France and in the UK. It's very difficult. There's constant surveillance of people who maybe are considered a threat or who are listed as being possible terrorists. Maybe that has not been quite the same thing in New Zealand, where people were just not expecting this thing to take place, this kind of event to take place, and that's why that New Zealand was chosen and why it was able to be to take place like that today. But that doesn't mean this is never going to happen anywhere else. It just happens to be in New Zealand this time round, but it doesn't mean that this kind of terrorist attack, unfortunately, won't happen again in another country.
Philip Turle, thank you for that.